Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Romi Hill. This is my Romi Studio, like fairly weekly live, where I go over all sorts of techniques, stuff that I've been posting on Instagram and Reels, and also I go over any new patterns that I have, and also your questions. So, anybody who's written to me and asked me questions, I may be going over your question. And I love seeing you all in the chat. So, hi. Hi, Marianne. Happy New Year. I'm going to answer your question too. So, I'm live and there's a delay. So, there's, I think, about a delay of maybe 15 seconds today. I think things are a little bit slow, so it's buffering more. If you want to participate in the live chat, you need to be subscribed to my channel. And if you do that, you can just immediately ask questions or talk in the live chat. And today, I'm going to be talking about my new pattern, the color serotonin. And I really needed some color, so that's why this pattern came up. And here they are. They're slippers, um, super colorful. And I did these actually out of Knit Picks Wool of the Andes. It's kind of my guilty pleasure because they have so many colors and I just love to play with all of their colors together. So I will be talking about how to cast on for these and the construction and how to look at the pattern and a lot of the techniques that are in these slippers are actually part of the reels that I have been posting on Instagram for the past week. So it sort of comes together. So before I get started on that, Marianne, you sent me a question about Rose of the Aegean, the shawl. And this applies to basically any lace design as well, or any type of design where there is patterning. You said you dropped 2 stitches. I'm so sorry. That's terrible. And you asked if that would affect the pattern. Yes. So, yes, it will affect the pattern. So, if you're working a chart and you've dropped 2 stitches, if you add them later on, you'll be able to see where that is. So, sometimes you can go back and just fix it. And sometimes it's kind of a lost cause and you have to rip everything back. Often you can fix it too, though, if you have just dropped a couple of stitches and that's all that's going on, um, you may be completely okay and just be able to work it back up to where you are right now. So, and it also, of course, matters where in the pattern it is. I mean, if it's by the edge or something, no one would ever see it. So, kind of up to you what you want to do with it. So, we have that question, and I'm so excited to see you all down there. So, hi, everybody. Okay, so first of all, these slippers are modeled on traditional Turkish slipper style, and they start at the toe and then they work up. So they work up to this area right here where I have my fingers across it right here. And at that point, you're going to put some stitches onto a spare needle right across in the front here and cast on stitches across where you put those stitches on a spare needle. So once you have cast on the stitches, you are once more going to be working in the round. So you can see on the back here, that is unbroken completely. So on the front, you have this little area here. These are the stitches where you were working on the round. So that's half the stitches that went on to the spare needle and then got cast on across the top to finish the heel. So what I really love about this construction, other than it just being I think, really cool. I think it's a lot of fun to do. When you put them on, the way that they're engineered makes them kind of hug your instep. So you don't have to really do anything extra because this opening here, once you go back and put the I cord on, this opening is going to sort of slant, and this little under part here is going to come up and hug your instep. So I love these. They stay on really well, and they're warm and cozy, and they make me smile when I look at them. So that's good. And let's see, just seeing everybody. Yay. Okay. So let me kind of switch over here and we'll take a really close look at the pattern and the slippers. So I have to warn you right now, um, I did not weave in any of my ends. So you're going to see in here. So as I'm going along, this is how I keep my ends sort of managed as I'm going, because there are so many colors in here. I just tied them off, and I will be weaving them in later, but I didn't feel like it at the moment. I was not in an end weaving mood. So so I didn't do it. Okay. So I want to first say a few of you have asked me to add extra sizes, and I'm in the process of adding a smaller size and a larger size. So, and I'm going to make them basically unisex sizes. So I know a couple of you wrote to me and asked about men's sizes. So soon. Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about is that these are mirror images of one another. And I did this because I didn't do anything about the jog. Um, right here where the patterning meets, you're going to see a jog along here. So that is because when you're working in the round, you're actually working a spiral. So this is the instep along here, and you can't see it when they're on. And then the other side, here's the instep on the other side. So everything is along this instep. One of these, the the I chord starts on this side, and the other one it starts on this side. And that is so that everything is along the instep, and you won't have to see it. So if you're wondering why. And then, of course, I reversed the patterns down here. So these are also mirror images. And so the pattern is written for 2 colors, but I used 10 colors. And I just had lots of fun with it. So I have the color key in the back of the pattern. So if you want to do what I did, you can see what I did. So let's see. I'm looking at questions. So Sue says, I'm planning on making some for family. So how would you describe the fit or ease? Should I plan on 10% less than actual measurements? I think that's up to you how you would like them to fit. So I've given the actual measurements, and so check your gauge, see how it's going, and there are a couple of places where you can add an extra row or so, or take out rows. And then also the large size is written in the pattern is wider than the small and the medium. So take that into consideration as well. So some people may have long, skinny feet, and some people may have short, wide feet like me. So you have the 2 choices, and it's very easy to do the pattern a little bit differently because it will end the same way. So both of the heels are going to end with the 24 stitches across here that you would graft together, or you can seam them. And then, so Sue, watch out for the other 2 sizes as well. So those will be coming up really soon, and that actually may help you with other family members. And you can further adjust these by changing your yarn weight. So that is something that I do quite a bit of time. Sometimes if something I want to make it a little bit smaller, I'll use a sport weight instead of a DK. Or if I want to make it a little bigger, I'll just go up maybe to an Aran weight. So this is a DK. You could go up to a worsted or an Aran weight that's just a little tiny bit thicker. Um, so these are worked on a US 6, and so you can also, some people may hold their yarn tighter. So in order to get nice spaced out floats like this, you may have to go up a size as well. And let's see, any other questions? So Nancy says, I've knit your other slippers from a previous audience and found the heel too long for my foot at the back. Should I just knit fewer rows at the end? So let me come over here. And you could definitely do that. You could knit fewer at the end, or you can cut out um, some rows across here before you get started, and you can just start decreasing for the heel. So on both of these charts, this is for the wider one and this is for the narrower one. They both have these extra rows before you start the decreases. So if the heel is too long for you, I suggest just taking out some of these rows here. And let's see. Okay, yay. So things are going well. Okay, Sue, I totally hear you. I have like duck feet, so I'm I like totally hear you there. Okay, um, here we go. Okay, so right now, written for women's shoe sizes. These are fairly loose because I know some of you prefer tighter socks and some prefer looser socks. So check your gauge, see how things are coming. Sometimes your gauge is going to change as you're doing the color work. So kind of keep an eye on it and just take a note where you insert or take out any rows, and I think you'll be good. So this is a liberal representation of how much you're going to need to work these. I'm assuming that you'll probably use more than two colors. So I added in some extra so that when you're working these, you have enough room for tails in there because it's not going to be one continuous strand. Okay, and let's see. Okay, just making sure no one else had any questions. I have my working needles down here. So you can do two circular needles. You can do double pointed needles, or you can do a magic loop. So for these, whichever one you want to do, I suggest if you're going to use the Turkish cast on that you use the two circs or a magic loop to do these because it's kind of fiddly on double pointed needles. So that's just my suggestion. I know some people do love to do the Turkish cast on double pointed needles, but then you can go to double points fairly soon after casting on. Okay, so for the I cord, I specified one size bigger, and that's to keep it nice and loose. It looks kind of floppy here, but when you put it on, um, it it's nice. It stretches nicely. So otherwise, it might be a little too tight if you do it with the working needle, but you can certainly do it that way. Okay, so because they're mirrored, the pattern is set up for left and right slippers. And I'm going to show you a couple of ways to cast on with the Turkish cast on for these. So this first part here is accurate for both of the slippers. That's just the toes. So it's basically this point right here. So you're casting on at the toe, and that's what the cast on looks like across there. And then after you've done the toe, that's when we split them up. Marianne asked if these are DK. Yes, this is DK weight yarn. So this first one here is the left, this little area right here. That's the left slipper. This kind of gray-green area here is the right slipper. And for finishing over on this page right here, that applies to both of the slippers. So here's your chart over here. For the most part, there's really nothing in the charts except for your master color and your contrast color, except for the heel. So these are just to show you the pattern. So these are all the left chart pattern, the left slipper patterns and the right slipper patterns. Okay, and you can see here they're mirrored. Both of these, like they're all mirrored. So once you're past all the mirrored ones here, you are going to move on to the heel. So as we were talking about earlier, I think it was Nancy who asked the question. Um, if you feel like the heel is a little too long for you, then definitely go ahead and just cut out some of these rows in here. So I tend to like my slippers to fit kind of snug. And so the heel is perfect for me. But everybody's foot is a little bit different. So if you want to take anything out, this little area down here is the place to do it. Okay, so after we finish this, after that heel is all decreased at the end here, you're going to be left with 24 stitches. So 12 on one side and 12 on the other side. And those can either be grafted or you can bind them off and sew it together. Okay, so let's see. Yay, Sue. I'm glad you have it all set for Knit Companion. Awesome. Okay, so inside, that is it's what it looks like across the heel there. That's with a graft. And I think the graft is the lowest profile when you want to wear them because it's not going to rub against your heel. I have like really tender heels, and I get blisters with stuff rubbing, so I like the graft across here. But like I said, everybody has slightly different ways they like to do things like this, so it's all good. Okay, so here is my little color story, and here is the key below to all the colors that I used. So it's Knit Picks Wool of the Andes. I just kind of keep them around like a bunch of colors of skeins, and I use little bits of them all the time. And yeah, so I'm not like they're not supporting me or anything. Like they didn't send me this yarn. I purchased it just because I like playing with colors. So so I finally just put out a pattern playing with colors. Okay, so let's go back here. I did want to say also that there are YouTube video links in here as well. So I have a Turkish cast on link right here. And then over on this side, this is how you would sew the I-cord together if you bind off instead of grafting it like I'm going to show you. Okay, so I'm going to move this aside and I'm going to do this cast on a few different times just to show you the different ways. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you a Turkish cast on with two circular needles. This is only casting on for one sock. And I'm going to show you a couple more. So, okay, I'm just going to make my slip knot here and put my slip knot on here. Okay, so I have two needles. These are the same size, and you can see they're shorter double pointed needles, but they can be a longer needle, and they can be also they can be a longer cable as well. So these are just the two that I happen to have free. So this is going to be just for one sock, casting on with a Turkish cast on with two circular needles. So it says to cast on 20 stitches. So that means I'm going to cast on, I think that's what I said anyway. I just want to make sure that, yes, okay. I didn't want to show you the wrong thing. So that means I want 10 stitches on either side. So I'm going to wrap both of these needles 10 times, holding these together. And I'm just going to wrap 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So now I have them wrapped and my yarn is coming into the back here. And I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to pull this bottom one through. So that needle, the whole needle is going to hang down. And then I'm going to be knitting. I'm going to use two circular needles. All the stitches are going to stay, these top stitches are all going to stay on this needle, and the bottom stitches that are being held on this cable are always going to stay on this needle. So here is working it continental style. You are just going to start knitting across here. So most of the stuff I can show you English style, but I have to warn you that I cannot do color work English style. So I'm afraid you are going to have to look for another place to see somebody do color work English style, because I am like just challenged in that area. Okay, so I am just knitting these across. So now I have these 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 stitches on my needle here, and you can see that I still have my slip knot down below on this cable here. So now I'm going to turn this over and I'm going to pull the bottom needle through. So now these stitches that I just worked are on this bottom needle right here, and I'm going to push the top needle in. Okay, so the first thing right here is my slip knot. I'm going to take that off and undo it. I don't need that anymore. It was just to help me stay, to keep that yarn on the needle. So this first stitch is going to be really loose, but don't worry because you can just tighten it right back up. And I'm going to work across. So again, it's kind of loose, so I'm just tightening that up a little bit. So I'm going to work across this top needle. Okay. And I always give my yarn a little bit of a tug, the yarn that I'm using at the edges here, because that helps this stay together and not get too loose and ladder. So the last stitch you come to is just this little twisty thing here. Don't knit it this way. That will be really weird. Don't knit it through the back loop. Just knit it through the front loop. It's going to twist around some more, but that is what's going to keep it looking right. So now you have your first round. That's the complete first round that's worked with your cast on. And to continue working in the round, you're just going to turn around, and this is, you're going to use this yarn here, and we are right here at this point. So we're on round 1 because we've just knit this one round right up here. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to knit 2 stitches, and I'm just going to give that a little pull there. Okay, so I'm going to do a make one right, and make one right's always more difficult. I just always sort of like loosen this up a little bit more so that I can do the make one right. So always remember the make one right. If you look at the base here, the twist goes to the right. So you can see this, the yarn here, that bar goes over to the right. And just going to knit down here. Make one left is so much easier. So I'm just picking up the bar, sticking it up here. I just keep my needle in there and make one left. You can see at the bottom here it twists to the left. So if you have problems remembering those, just check yourself that way. So we're starting to get a little bit of toe action there. And I'm just going to turn this over. So I was kind to you and I did not put any color work on the toe. So you do not have to do any increases as you're working the toe. By the time you get to the color work, all of the increases are done. And then here we are on the back again. Okay, so here's the bar between stitches. Just gonna put it up here. My right leg is gonna be in the back, and I'm just gonna kind of loosen that out a little bit so I can twist the bar and do my make one right. And just gonna go on here to the end and do my make one left. And at the end. Okay, so at this point, I generally mark where the start of the round is. And because it's right between these 2 needles and a regular marker would fall off, I just use a pin and mark it. So I know which side everything is on. These stitches are going to stay up at the top. These stitches are going to stay on this other needle. So at this point, you may notice that it looks a little bit loose across here. And this is something you can do anytime at all. You don't actually have to, you can do it now or you can do it later. Just come across here and you can actually tighten this up. This is the cast on row. So if you feel like it's too loose, you can just go across here and you're going to be working towards the tail. You can just keep on going right across here, tightening across all the way. When you're happy with the gauge. If it's super loose, you might want to do a couple of passes or not. Totally up to you. Sometimes it's hard. You kind of get lost in the middle here. But just get to the end and then let's get over here so we can pull that through like that. Okay, so it's still a little bit loose. I'm just gonna work across here a little bit more. So I always leave my end and I don't sew this tail in until the very last in case I want to adjust the cast on row across here. And that's how you do it. Okay, so now I'm going to take this out and I'm going to show you how to do this with Magic Loop. Um, I know lots of people like to use the Magic Loop. I'm not the biggest Magic Loop fan, but um, I'm kind of a convert when you're doing two socks at a time. I think it's kind of fun to use. So if you're going to do Magic Loop, then you want a longer cable. So the one that I showed you before, the two circs, that had two short cables. Okay, so we're going to do basically the same thing. I'm going to do my little slip knot. The slip knot is going to go above here, and you can see here's the cable loop here, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to wrap this 10 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to pull the bottom through here. So you can see here's my loop on this end. I don't ever want to get rid of that loop. That loop is going to stay there the whole time, but I'm going to use this end to work my stitches. And this time I will show you um, in English style. And please don't laugh. I'm terrible at knitting English style. So this is how it's coming around here. You're just going to start knitting across. So I am a thrower. My mother was a picker, like she was a lever knitter, and she had longer fingers than I do. And so I have never been able to quite do a lever. So this goes across here. I'm going to make sure I have enough stitches because you can see here it's sort of coming apart, and that's not a problem. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8. Here's 9 and 10. So it's just too loose, I think. Okay, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay, so here we go. We still have this, we have this little slip knot is on the cable, and I'm going to turn this over, and you can see over here, oops, I meant here. You can see over here, you still have the loop. I want to keep that loop, so I'm going to pull that needle in and then pull this one forward. So my stitches are going to come up onto my needle up here, and then we have the cable coming through here and over to the left here is my loop. I don't want to lose that loop because it's kind of a pain. Okay, so here is my my slip knot. I'm going to take that off, and I'm just going to use my yarn up here. I'm going to stick my needle into this first one and work that first stitch. One of these days, I will learn how to lever. Almost. Okay, so you can see it's loose again. Just give it a little pull and you will be fine. And same with the magic loop. It can get a little loose, and you can do exactly the same thing that you did with the two circs. So you're going to get to the end here. And again, that little loop here is going to look kind of weird and twisted. You want to still knit that through the front loop. And now you're just going to continue in the round. So I always pull that loop through first to make sure that I don't lose it. And this is going to be just like when you were knitting with the two circs, except that on one end, instead of having those two needles, you're going to have this loop, and then you're only going to have um, the needles on one side, and you can just keep going this way. So give it a yank still like that, because it does tend to get laddery at the edge. And there you go with that. Okay, so let's go. So if any of you are on Instagram, you probably saw me starting two socks at a time using the Turkish cast on. So that is what I'm going to show you right now. I'm going to show you with two circular needles. So full disclosure, I have terrible second sock or second slipper syndrome. Either one, I mean, it's just like endemic. Anyway, so I started these two together and I worked them up to the point of the color work. And I actually started working the color work, but it was just a pain to do both of them like this. I had four skeins hanging off of my needles at the same time. So I separated them and I just put one of these on a spare needle and then went back and finished it. But I honestly, somehow just starting that toe at the same time made it so much easier. So if you also suffer from second sock syndrome or second slipper syndrome, I highly recommend this. And I am going to show you this with two circular needles. I'm going to do two colors. So I make my slip knots ahead of time because it's just easier that way. It's harder to do the slip knots when I get to actually casting on the second color. So again, I'm doing this with two circular needles. I'm going to start here with this light color. And I have my slip knot on the top needle and both of my tail and my working yarn hanging down here. So I'm going to wrap 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. And I'm just going to stick my finger on the back here so this doesn't unwrap. I'm going to take my other color here and tighten up my little slip knot there. And now I'm going to wrap this one. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to kind of hold both of these yarns in the back here and turn over. I'm going to pull this bottom one through. So remember, all of the stitches that are on the bottom here are going to stay there. And I'm going to start working with this top needle. So I'm just going to hold the second color against the needle and start with the first color. And I'm going to knit across the top stitches here. And okay, so I've got the top stitches of one of these on my needle, and then I'm going to go over to the second one here and grab my second color, So you can see it still has that little slip knot that's on the cable. Now I'm going to take this working yarn and work across the second 10 stitches. So I think these slippers are really fun because the way that I did these, you never are using the same color at the same time. So if you are a person who likes to do two at a time with color work, these, like if you go by the colors that I have in the bag, you will never be using the same color on both socks at the same time. So you can do the whole thing without cutting up your yarn or working from both ends. Okay, so I'm at the end here. I've worked my 10 stitches of both colors. I'm going to rotate. Now I'm going to work on this other side up here. Make sure you don't get your tail. Okay, and these are going to go onto the same needle again. So the first thing I'm going to see is my slip knot. And I'm going to take my slip knot off and just undo that. And now I'm going to start, I'm going to tighten that up a little bit and just start across here. I may have to tighten up the toes later on, but I don't think that'll be a problem. Okay, so I worked those. Now I'm going to go next door. And again, I have my slip knot there. I'm going to take it off and undo it and start across these. Tighten that up a little bit. Okay. So basically what you're going to see is it's pretty much the same as working one at a time. I'm going to rotate this and I'm just going to continue working just like I would if I had only one sock on my needles. So I'm ready to work my first shaping row. So that is how you cast on two at a time. So it's pretty fun actually watching them grow. So if you haven't tried this, I definitely suggest. It's fun to do. Okay, so let's get on to the next part here. Um, So if you have been knitting the pattern or if you have looked at the pattern, you'll see that I wrote it like it looks like two colors. So this is what it looks like with two colors, master and contrast color. So probably if I continue with this pair, I will reverse these out so that this toe is the gold. So that's what that looks like. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the color work in here. This is the left slipper. So here's where I am, and I like to use Post-its to keep track of where I am. So it's very low tech. Um, this is the round I just finished. I'm gonna move up here. So I'm working on the chart B. So if you have done a lot of color work, you've probably heard about dominant versus non-dominant yarn. So the dominant yarn is the one that is going to pop more, and the non-dominant yarn tends to sort of like fade back more into the background. So I don't know why it works this way. It just like for some weird reason, okay, whichever yarn you hold to your left is going to be the yarn where the float is under. So this yarn here is was held dominant to this yarn right here. So I was holding my lighter yarn dominant to my darker yarn here. But down here, I wanted my darker yarn to pop more because there's only one stitch in the middle of this little area here in sort of the background. So I held my my darker yarn dominant in this area, but up in this area, I wanted the lighter yarn to pop more. So that's like picky, but I will say, um, definitely notice which one you're holding dominant and do it for both slippers. Because even though you may not be able to tell that much of a difference if you're working on just one of them, and you're just holding whatever and you're like, oh, this doesn't really make a difference. Believe me, if you reverse them, you will be able to tell the difference between the two slippers. So, like if I reversed this, the dominance here, it would, the dark little knits right here would kind of pull back into this and it would make a big difference. So, like I was saying, I'm holding my light yarn dominant in this area right here. And in this area, I held my dark yarn dominant. Okay, so this is the way I do color work. Um, and this works really well for me as a continental knitter. It has completely evened out my color work. So that's my dominant yarn and my non-dominant yarn. I'm just going to weave it across my first two fingers like this. And I'm going to hold these and I'm going to work across. So when I tension my yarn, it's partially tensioned against my needle like this where I'm holding it so that it's not very, it's kind of medium. It's not too loose. It's a Goldilocks kind of tension. Okay, let's see. Okay, so I'm right on row 6 here, and master color is the white. My master color is my dark yarn. So I'm just going to start knitting across here. I take a little extra care across the sides when I do this because I don't want this to pull, but I also don't want it to ladder. So I pull my stitches apart when I do color work like this, and that helps me even it out. And that is something that you can do however you knit. So whether you knit continental or English, if you keep your stitches spread out more like that, you are going to find that you don't get your floats pulling in as much. So you want to keep those spread out. And people do color work in all sorts of different ways. People do it one yarn in each hand. Um, there is a fairly prominent knitter who drops yarns in between stitches. And however you do it, like there's no wrong way. And if somebody makes fun of you for the way you do your color work, that's just not acceptable. So just do it however it feels comfortable. Okay, so just going to sort of pull this. Okay, so I ended with a gold. And I like to make sure, again, that those corners are doing okay. Not really corners, but you know what I mean. The sides, I don't want them to ladder, but I also don't want them to be super loose. So there are no long floats on these to trap. It's a very small pattern, um, just 4 stitches wide for all of the motifs. Okay. So at the side, you are going to notice that the pattern doesn't quite match up. That's okay. It's going to be hidden along your instep. Now you can stretch it like that. That's what you want it to be like. You want to be able to just kind of stretch it. So that is what it looks like. 2 colors. I may do more or not. We'll see if I really want those slippers, or they may be claimed by a child of mine, possibly. Anyway, okay, so let's see. Um, so Vegan Time says, as an English knitter, I've held yarns in left and right with right hand being dominant. Ah, okay. So yes, even if you're holding um, one yarn in each hand, the one that you hold in your left hand is the one that's going to be the dominant yarn. But the very most important thing is that you just don't switch them in the middle of the project, and that you remember which one you held in which hand, so you can do both of your slippers that way. So that way they'll both look the same, like regardless of what you did. So as long as they both look like they're the same thing, it won't be all that noticeable. So don't worry about that. Okay, so let's take a look here. So I did want to talk a little bit about putting your stitches on a spare needle for the heel. So remember we were talking about this. Okay, so I also did not do the color work up to where your stitches are put on a spare needle across here, because that's just extra pain. So if you do edit these, definitely just leave one row of one color across here. It just makes it a lot easier. So it makes it a lot easier to deal with that. So you're going to put your stitches on your spare needle right across, and that's half of the stitches are going to go on a spare needle. You're going to have them hanging down. So I'm just going to sort of simulate this. Let me just get a spare needle here. I specified a really small needle, but it doesn't really matter all that much. So on my left slipper, let's see. So I am going to pretend, I'm going to pretend this is my right slipper. Okay. I'm just going to work with one color here. So let's do this. Okay, so this is the heel. This is the pretend heel because I'm not up to the heel yet. Okay, so I'm going to knit 22 stitches, and that is across one whole needle here. So it's another reason that I like to do these on 2 circular needles. So I'm just going to go across all of my stitches here on this one side. So this is the underside. This is the sole of the slipper. So that's just going to get knit first. So again, if I were doing these for real, there would be this whole thing here would just be one color. I think that makes it just a little bit easier. Okay. Now I'm going to turn this over. So now I'm going to put these stitches on a spare needle like this. That's this part right here. And this is a smaller needle. Um, I specified a really small needle. I think it makes it a little bit easier to use if it's a super small needle, but really it's not a problem to use a little bigger needle if you don't have a really small needle. So I'm just going to put these on. So this is my second 22 stitches right across here. And with that, this needle is completely free. Okay, so I'm going to cast on stitches across here. I'm going to use backwards loop. So the first one's going to look a little weird. It's just a little loop here. Let me move this away because I think that that is making it just a bit darker than I want it to be. Okay, so you can see my loop here. I am going to cast on 22 stitches across. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. Okay, so when I cast these on, I have my right leg in front of the needle and my left leg in back. This is also called an E cast on. And if you have a different way that you prefer to cast on in line, that is totally fine to use if you want to use something different. If you do use something different, make sure it's loose because you're going to want this area loose so it can fit over your arch. So that's right across here. You want that. You want it loose so that it stretches a lot. So you don't want anything like a cable cast on or something that's just too tight on your foot. Okay, so this is going to be really loose, and you're going to think that it's going to look horrible and sloppy and dreadful, but it won't. It will be totally fine. So once that's cast on, I'm going to go over to the other side here. Move this out of the way. So here's my cast on. So you want to do a little bit of due diligence here to make sure that this actually doesn't twist. You don't want that to twist. And so here's your yarn coming down. And now you're just going to start knitting on the other side. So this is your new area here that's going to be in the round. And you're just going to start working in the round here again. So the first time you go past that cast on, it's going to look kind of loose and sloppy and difficult. Don't worry about it. Once you get past it, it's just going to look nice and nice and loose. It'll blend right into the rest of your knitting. So I'll show you what I mean by it being a little weird at first. Okay, so now we're going to turn over on the other side. So at first, this just looks weird. Like here are these stitches down here, here are this cast on part up here. But you are again going to slide your needle through. So if you're doing this on double pointed needles, it will be a little bit more stable. It's the cable that's kind of I don't know, it gives you more leeway, but it also can make things a little bit more difficult. So you're just going to like move your stitches onto your needle. So this looks really loose here. Don't worry, that will close up. And once you get that I-cord on there, you will not notice it. Okay, so this is what it looks like at first. That's a little scary to look at, but trust me, I swear it will close up. Okay, so I'm just going to start working these stitches across here. And I'm going to pull this pretty tight over to the cable because I don't want to keep that little opening there, and that's going to make it look like there's a lot more of an opening between these two stitches, but that will fade into the background and everything will be fine again. So now as we're going across, this is the cast on row is where you're going to be picking up stitches to do the I-cord. Okay. And this is the same as with English. You're just going to be knitting across here and you're going to come to the end and it's again going to look a little bit stretched out, but don't worry. Okay, so you can see across here how kind of loopy that looks and open, but you're going to cover that up completely with the lovely I-cord. I-cord can hide a multitude of little issues. Okay, so now that I'm over here, I'm just going to start another row and pull that tight. Okay, so at this point, if you take a look over, this is the front side here. And here up here, this is what we're working on. We're once again working in the round. So this, what we're working is right above here. So we just cast on across this area and we're working underneath here. And this has just continued on. And that is what we're going to work now. That one is the last chart with the heel shaping. So grab that one. That's this chart. So you're going to start working with two colors now again. Alrighty. So I'm going to set this aside. Hopefully this makes sense, like the way that the heel works. If it doesn't, let me know, and I can go more into detail on my next live. Okay, so let's look at the I-cord. Once you have all of your stitches picked up, you are going to do an I-cord. Oh, let me show you how to graft first. Okay, so I have like all of these little pieces of stuff to show you. So this is 24 stitches across here. So there's 12 in front and 12 in back. And that is simulating this little heel here with 12 in front and 12 in back. So when you graft, you're going to be off half a stitch because you want this to look nice and continuous across here. And so what you're actually doing is connecting the right side up these on this side to the upside down ones on the other side. So if this, it's half a stitch off. but no one's really going to look that hard at your heel because you're going to be walking on it. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Okay, so when I graft, I use probably a longer tail than a lot of people, um, but you need, I would say, 3 or 4 widths right here. Um, 3 is going to be your probably about your whole row of grafting across here. I actually like to have extra leeway, so I am going to have, I'm going to use extra here. And I put my needle somewhere that I have no idea where it is, so I'm just going to get another needle. Thankfully, I have extras. Okay, so let's see. Okay, this is a blunt tapestry needle. I always make sure to use a blunt one. I don't want to split any of my stitches. Let me move this stuff out of the way. Lots of paper here. Okay, so I'm going to take this and this is my working yarn right here. So this is how I graft. I think different people do it different ways. But the important thing is to make it look like knit stitches across the top. So this is my last stitch that I did, and I'm going to take my working yarn and go from the purl side to the knit side through that last stitch that I did. Now I'm going to come to the front and I'm going to go from the knit side to the purl side. And that can come off my needle now. And then from the purl side to the knit side. I'm going to keep this loose all the way across. Now I'm going to go over the back on the other side from the knit side to the purl side, back through that first stitch that I started with, and from the purl side to the knit side. And I try to keep my tails out of the way, but sometimes it just doesn't work. Then I'm going to come across on the other side. So here's the stitch that I came out of on the other side. I am going to go from knit to purl and then purl to knit. And there are mnemonics to remember this, but I actually prefer just to pay extra attention and read my knitting more. On the other side, from knit to purl, purl to knit. So what I'm doing is creating a cross here. I'm creating another row and back, really super important to go back into the row that you came out of. And it doesn't matter how sloppy this is, because we're going to tighten it up at the end. So across here, and it is going to be fairly sloppy by the time I get through with this. That's okay. It's much, much easier to tighten than it is to loosen. Because once you lose that grafting row, it's hard to find it again. Always remember, go back to the stitch that you came out of. And every time you do that, you're going to go in from the knit side and out of the purl side. So here we go. I'm probably boring you to death, so I'm just going to speed this up a little bit. Kind of pull my yarn over here. back in, back out. So there are different ways to do this. One way, if you're not sure how to graft, is to do an extra row with waste yarn. And that can be really helpful to figure out the path of your that your yarn should follow. And I actually do that when I'm grafting in pattern. I will do a row of waste yarn just so my brain doesn't break. And it's super helpful. So you can see, because I have been doing this really loose, and you can see here that I'm almost out of my yarn. So that is why I use this extra long tail. Okay. And almost done. And this is the heel, or you can do a 3-needle bind off, or you can actually just bind it off and sew it together. And I just like the graft. Oops. My needle is escaping me. Back out the other side. Okay, so at the end, I like to go back into my last stitch here. So I'm actually going to keep my tail on this side so it's easier to pull things through. So I'm not going to put it inside yet. Okay, so this is what it looks like before you start tightening up. And now you can just start tightening across. So you're going to start over at the side where you began your graft. Sometimes it gets a little stuck. Okay, there we go. And you're just going to tighten across. So I make several passes. I try not to get it too tight. I do not want to lose my graft row there in the middle of my stitches. It's super hard to find it again. And Sue is saying, yes, definitely. Sue says the extra row is extra helpful in grafting double row laces. Oh my gosh, yes. So this is a trick that I learned in A Gathering of Lace, and it's a Meg Swanson book. It's like the most amazing book. So I think you can still get it on her Schoolhouse Press site, and it has all of these little tips and tricks and amazing things in the back. And this is one of the little tricks that was in there, to be able to graft together lace patterning, doing that little extra row. It makes such a huge difference because that way you can just see where you are. Okay. So this is being a booger here. I think I split the yarn at the end. Yep, I did. Okay. Let's get that out of there. Okay. There we go. And then just gonna keep doing that all the way across. You can do extra passes. And you may have your own way that you like to do grafting. So this is by no means the only way to do it. However you like to do it and are comfortable. Um, that's the way you should do it. So you're just going to be difficult, aren't you, at the end here? Sometimes I have little conversations with my yarn before I put it in timeout. Okay, so I would probably do a few more passes on this to make it really perfect. But that is the idea for the heel. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about the I-cord bind off really quick. Okay, this is flat, but it works the same. When you come to that I-cord, actually first let me show you. Oh, well, we can do picking up stitches later if anybody has problems with it. So I specified a larger needle, and that is just to make it stretchier. So to start your I-cord, you are going to cast on 3 stitches. And this is the knitted cast on. Just that's the basis for your I-cord that's going to go all the way around that little bit of your ankle opening. Okay, so we have my 3 stitches cast on. Now I'm going to knit 2. And for this I-cord, I did an SSK instead of a knit 2 together through the back loop. You can do either one. And the SSK I used was a slip one, knit 1 through the back loop, and then pass over. So do whatever is your favorite. You don't have to do the same one I did. So that's going to be knit 2 stitches and then SSK. So SSK, just a left leaning decrease, and then you're going to stick those stitches back onto your left needle. Knit 2. So if you wanted to do knit 2 together through the back loop, you could do that. That's like that. So it looks pretty similar. Stick that back on, and you're just going to continue all the way around doing that exact same thing. Knit 2, you can do SSK, slip, slip, and then knit 2 together through the back loop. I actually like this twisted more because it's less open right there. Slip it back. So here is the one I was doing. Slip as if to knit, knit 1 through the back loop, pass the stitch over, and then send those back to your left needle. If you are knitting English style, basically the same. Ooh, I almost did a lever there. Slip as if to knit, knit 1 through the back loop, and then pass that over, and then I'm just going to pass all those 3 stitches back to my left needle without dropping one this time. There we go. Alrighty. So that's what it's going to look like. And at the end, I have another little one for you. So at the end, you can bind this off here, or you can also graft it together. So once you've done your I-cord all the way around, this is what it's going to look like. So I am going to show you what it looks like to graft these stitches together, that side of the I-cord with this side of the I-cord. Okay. So I'm just going to load up my needle here. It's the same blunt needle. And the first thing I'm going to do is go through from the purl side to the knit side on this last stitch that I did. And kind of tighten that up a little bit. Okay, and now I'm going to come over to this side. I want it the nicest looking V over here. So I'm going to grab this one because that one looks neater. And I'm just going to put my needle through these under these two legs. And then back to the other side in the knit side of that stitch that I came out of. Okay. And then from the purl to the knit side next to it. Now I'm going to go next door here to this next little, the next nice looking V. It's looking kind of shabby here, so my V's aren't very pretty. So, okay, there's my next one, and then I'm going to come back up here again into the knit side. Okay, I think I got my yarn going around the wrong way. So let me just put this stitch back. Okay, that happens sometimes when the yarn is not behaving itself. Okay, so into the knit side and out through the purl side. And now I can take that off and I'm going to come over to the last little V here. So you can see that little V column there. I'm going to pull this through and come back up here. You can see where I came out of this stitch. I'm going to go back into that stitch. Okay, so it's looking really open and sloppy. So Marianne, you asked if I'm going to be in the Philadelphia area this year. Um, you will be the first to know because I think you're subscribed to my newsletter, so you will get all the info, I promise. Okay, and now I'm just going to um, tighten this up. And same as before, um, just kind of work across until you get the desired effect and it looks nice and closed up. So when you do the grafting for this I cord, you are not half a stitch off because all of your stitches are going in the same direction. So you're actually just making this look like it's seamless I cord right across here. So there you go. Okay, so I've kept you extra long this time because there are so many little things to show on these. And I bet you guys are all going to have some extra questions as well. So definitely let me know. And I realize like I've gone like almost half an hour over what I usually do. So, but there was a lot to go over. So anyway, if anybody has any questions, let me know, and I can go over your questions in my next live. I can post little YouTube tutorials and stuff, extra ones aside from the ones that are in the patterns. And yeah, just I'm on Facebook. I have a Facebook group and a Facebook page. I have a Ravelry page. I do little reels on Instagram. I don't offer pattern support on Instagram. I mostly like to offer pattern support where other people could benefit from the support as well, because often when one person has a question, more people have a question as well. So I just want to make sure that there isn't anybody out there who has the same question that you do but doesn't want to ask it. So I love doing these little lives and reels and posting in forums and stuff like that. So also on my Ravelry group, there is a pattern thread for this. So if you are on Ravelry, you can ask questions in that thread, and like a bunch of people will jump in and fight over you to help you. Or I'm in my Facebook group as well. And let me know if you want to see anything. So let's see if there are any other questions on there. I think I got everybody. Okay, so thank you all so much for joining me and hanging out through the live. I love seeing you in the chat. And even if you were not in the chat, definitely subscribe so next time that you can ask questions along in the chat. And please like my video. The more nice things you say and the more people who subscribe and like, the more YouTube loves me. So that would be fantastic. Thank you again for joining me. And I hope to see you again very soon. Don't be a stranger. And Happy New Year, everybody. Take good care. Bye bye.